What would you do if you saw a cashier's hands shaking while serving you? That's exactly what happened to a struggling single dad one evening. And when he asked her why, her heartbreaking reply left him completely speechless. Before I tell you this emotional story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Kind Soul TV, because you won't want to miss what happens next. It was a chilly evening when David, a single father who had been struggling to hold his small world together, walked into a neighborhood grocery store with his little daughter clutching his hand. The kind of handhold that said more than words ever could, because his daughter Lily trusted him with her whole heart. Even though inside David often wondered how long he could keep up the fight of raising her alone, after losing his wife 2 years earlier in an accident that still haunted his nights. But he smiled at her because that smile gave her courage, and because he knew children notice everything. So when he promised her they'd pick up some bread, milk, and maybe even a small treat if there was enough money left after rent, electricity, and daycare, he meant it with all the determination of a father who would starve before letting his child go hungry. And as they walked through the quiet aisles with fluorescent lights humming above them, David felt a mixture of fatigue from his long shift as a construction worker, and a tender hope that maybe tomorrow things might get a little easier, though he had no evidence for it. Just the stubborn resilience that parents learn when there is no other choice. And when they reached the checkout line, David noticed something unusual. Something that drew his tired eyes into sharper focus, because the young woman behind the counter, a cashier in her early 20s with her brown hair tied back loosely and dark circles under her eyes, was scanning items, but her hands were trembling so noticeably that even the scanner beeped unevenly as if echoing her exhaustion. And David, being someone who had known the invisible weight of quiet struggles, couldn't ignore it. So while Lily placed the loaf of bread and a carton of milk on the counter with childlike innocence, David leaned slightly forward and asked gently, "Miss, are you all right? Why are your hands shaking like that?" And for a moment she froze, as though nobody had asked her that question in a long time, her eyes glistening with something between shame and the desperate effort to hold herself together. And then she tried to force a polite smile as she shook her head, mumbling that she was fine. But David recognized the tone of someone who was very much not fine, because he himself had used that same tone countless times when people asked how he was holding up after his wife passed. And he wasn't about to just nod and move on, so he lowered his voice and said softly, "I don't mean to pry, but I know what tired looks like, and that's not just tired. Something's wrong." And his words cracked open a dam she had been holding back for far too long, because suddenly her lips trembled and she whispered, "My hands are shaking because I haven't eaten anything all day. I've been working since morning, and this is my second shift. But I can't stop. My little brother is at home sick and he needs his medicine, and I need every dollar to pay for it." And the way her voice broke when she said it silenced David, leaving him speechless in a way that only raw truth can silence a person, because in her story he saw a reflection of himself, the same endless sacrifice, the same quiet suffering hidden from the world. And he realized that behind every cashier, every worker, every stranger, there might be a storm nobody knows about. And for a long moment he didn't know what to say, only that he had to do something. So he asked her name and she told him it was Emily. And when she tried to steady her hands on the counter, David quickly told her to pause for a moment, and asked if she had eaten anything at all. And when she shook her head, he pulled a protein bar from the impulse shelf, paid for it right away, unwrapped it, and handed it to her, saying, "Please, just eat this right now. You need strength." And at first she hesitated, embarrassed. But when she saw the sincerity in his eyes, she took it, and with shaking hands brought it to her mouth. And as she chewed, tears welled up in her eyes, because sometimes the smallest act of kindness feels like the heaviest gift, when you've been holding the world on your shoulders alone. And David felt a lump in his throat, because he remembered nights when he had skipped meals so Lily could have enough. And now watching Emily reminded him how invisible pain often is in this world. So while Lily tugged at his sleeve and asked innocently, "Daddy, is she okay?" David nodded and said, "Yes, sweetheart. She will be okay." Though he wasn't sure if that was true, but he wanted it to be. And then Emily whispered, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to break down in front of you. It's just been so hard lately. After our parents left us, I became the only one to take care of my little brother. He's only 12. And his medicine is so expensive, but I can't stop working because then we'd have nothing. And her words pierced David's soul, because he knew that same fear. The fear of not being enough for the ones you love. And in that quiet corner of a simple grocery store, two strangers connected through shared burdens and silent battles. And David told her, "Don't apologize, you're stronger than you know, and I understand more than you think. Raising a child alone isn't easy, but you're doing it. One day at a time." The following week brought heavy rain. The kind that seemed to mirror David's heart on days when bills piled up and he wondered if working 2 shifts would ever be enough. But life has a strange way of weaving souls together when they need it most, and one evening as he picked Lily up from school and passed by the same grocery store, he saw Emily sitting outside on the curb in her thin jacket, soaked from the drizzle, her head resting in her hands, and without hesitation he walked over, asking if she was all right. And when she looked up, her eyes red from crying, she whispered that her brother's condition had worsened. The medicine costs had gone up again, and she had no idea how to manage it. And though David was barely surviving himself, something inside him refused to walk away, because he knew the loneliness of carrying burdens too heavy for one set of shoulders. So he invited Emily and her brother, whose name was Sam, over for dinner that night, and when they arrived, Lily instantly took Sam by the hand and showed him her small collection of toys, the kind of innocent kindness that children give without question. And for a brief moment Emily sat at David's worn-out kitchen table, smelling the aroma of warm food. And she admitted she hadn't had a real meal with family since her parents left them, which made David's chest ache with a pain he knew too well. So they ate together, laughter mixing with tears, strangers slowly turning into something closer to family. And when Sam shyly said, "This is the best meal I've had in a long time," Emily's eyes filled with silent gratitude. Because in that moment she realized she wasn't as alone as she thought. And over the next weeks their lives began to intertwine naturally. David helping Emily with groceries. Emily watching Lily after school when David worked late. And slowly what had started as one simple question in a checkout line grew into a bond forged by compassion and shared struggle. Yet one evening Emily pulled David aside and confessed her deepest fear, that she might lose Sam if she couldn't keep up with his treatments. And her hands shook again just like the first time he saw her. But this time David gently held them and said, "You don't have to fight this alone anymore." And though neither of them had much, they began helping each other in small but powerful ways. David fixing things at Emily's apartment, Emily caring for Lily with a tenderness that came from her own longing for family. And slowly hope began to bloom where once there was only despair, until one night, after Sam came home from the hospital with good news that the treatments were working, Emily broke down in tears of relief and hugged David tightly, whispering, "If you hadn't stopped to ask why my hands were shaking, I don't know where we'd be now." And David, who once thought he was destined to face life's storms alone, realized that sometimes the family you need isn't the one you're born into, but the one kindness leads you to. And as Lily and Sam played together in the living room, the sound of their laughter echoing like music, David finally felt something he hadn't in years. Peace. Because he knew tomorrow would still be hard, but he wasn't walking it alone anymore. And to everyone listening to this story, remember this one gentle question: one act of kindness can change not just a moment but an entire lifetime. So if this ending touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Kind Soul TV. Because more stories like this are waiting to remind us all of the power of compassion, and the beauty of never giving up hope.